Now, before we sat down for this session, I spoke briefly to Jerry and Kathy, and because they're taking different angles on the water issue, what we'd like to do is allow a few questions at this point, if they're particularly skewed towards Jerry's presentation, and then we'll carry on with Kathy. So if we've got, and we do have, anyone, let's take maybe up to 3 questions if we've got them, and if we can each introduce ourselves as we speak.
3 to 4 gallons of water per gallon of fuel. What happens to the residual water?
There's some consumptive use because for cooling and so forth, you lose some, but most of it is returned. There have been problems, I didn't talk about it, both with the air permits of some of the facilities. They've not always met their air permits, especially for hydrocarbons and VOCs. Some with the water permits, total suspended solids, and TDS, total dissolved solids, is the biggest problem because they're using mostly reverse osmosis to create the pure water that's needed for the process, and there's a brine blowdown that occasionally, oil and grease is another one that occasionally is violated.
Dick Jackson, UCLA. It was almost the same question as Jack's, but does the water coming off, I mean, enormous quantities of water, is it going to municipal treatment sites? Is it going back into the aquifer? Where is it being put?
Mostly there's an on-site treatment facility and there's a discharge permit directly to the stream. So it might have come from a glacial aquifer, from a confined aquifer, and then be discharged back to the stream in hopefully acceptable quality according to their permits, their NPDES permits.
Well, the poor Gulf of Mexico is certainly getting a lot, isn't it?
Pardon me?
Between the nitrogen, the atrazine.
Yeah, that's right. And it's mainly because these crops are amazing. You know, you got to put so much nitrogen on to replace what has been taken off in the grain itself, which is really a lot of nitrogen. And if it rains after you apply, theoretically the crop should take it all up, but if it rains after you apply, down the Mississippi it goes.
Dennis Devlin, ExxonMobil. With this significant water use and the drawdown of valuable aquifers, are the local water districts getting involved in the permitting process? And has there been any case yet where they've not approved
Denied?
it or significantly questioned it?
I'm told that there has been some denied in Kansas. You know, the Republican River, you may be familiar with that. It actually has gone dry on its way from Nebraska to Kansas, but in Iowa, I don't believe any have been denied. It's a statewide permitting authority, not local county.
Okay, thanks.
Quick question. So let's say that 5 years actually turns out to be 3 years, and we can produce cellulosic. All those corn ethanol plants, can they be converted to cellulosic?
That seems to be how it's going right now, Al, that they'll co-locate the corn ethanol with cellulosic at the same site.
So that you're then suggesting they would continue to produce corn ethanol?
Well, according to the mandate, they would, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. They just can't grow it. And my first recommendation is, I'm worried that people will get tempted to go further. You know, we've got this big infrastructure, and it's kind of tempting to say, okay, let's use more corn, and I'm saying don't do that.
Well, I guess in the back of my mind, I was thinking, okay, they find a cost-effective way to make cellulosic, and that drives the corn ethanol people out of business because of blend.
Oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. I hadn't even thought of that.
But could the plants then be turned into cellulosic, or is it
so
different?
Sure, yes. There's a lot. They share a lot of processes in common.
Jerry, one from me. I'm not sure I've really understood if we're using land for this purpose rather than alternative irrigated agriculture. How are we impacting on water demand? Now, I know you've talked about some perennial crops and others, but
if you're irrigating, it's clear that you've got a much greater water demand because you're increasing the total irrigated acres. If it's rain-fed agriculture, then maybe not so much so, other than at the production facility.
And we had a National Security Committee report last year that described the Western US in the same sentence as the Middle East as a place where aquifer drawdown from groundwater extraction from irrigation was a major future security risk issue.
I agree, and it seems like it's sort of lost on the general public. People don't realize that we're unsustainably pumping down these aquifers. In the counties west of Chicago, Cook County can use Lake Michigan, but in the counties west of Chicago, they've pumped it down about 800 feet now, the aquifer, and there's ethanol production facilities a part of that.
Okay, could we all thank Jerry once more?
Thank you.
Now, to continue my learning, I've now learned that Iowa is a place with at least 2 universities. It's populated by people with an uncommon fascination with corn. Life is good and the sky is sunny. Am I getting this about right?
Absolutely.
My summary slide showed cloudy skies.